That Ancestry report sitting in your email, the one that says you're 30% Scandinavian or 40% Irish. Here's what the company didn't tell you. Scientists now say there's no such thing as Celtic DNA. And those blonde-haired, blue-eyed Vikings everyone pictures? The largest genetic study ever conducted, 442 ancient human genomes from across Europe and Greenland, spanning from the Bronze Age through the Viking Age, proved most of them had brown hair. In 2025, paleogenomic researchers published findings that should terrify the ancestry testing industry. The labels they sell you are culturally constructed, not genetically real. Yet companies keep using them because myths sell better than science. So can you actually trace Celtic or Viking ancestry? Yes, but not the way you've been told. In this video, we're using cutting-edge genetic research to reveal 6 real clues hidden in your DNA and expose what the testing companies don't want you to know. Before we start, drop a comment. Did your DNA test surprise you, or did it just confirm what you already expected? Clue 1. What 442 ancient genomes really showed. Let's start by destroying the biggest lie in popular history. In September 2020, the journal Nature published the largest Viking DNA study ever conducted. Researchers sequenced 442 ancient human genomes from archaeological sites across Europe and Greenland, spanning from the Bronze Age through the Viking Age. The results shocked even the scientists. Many Vikings had brown hair, not blonde. Their DNA revealed genetic influx from southern Europe and Asia that arrived before the Viking Age even began. One skeleton, buried in a Viking warrior grave in Norway, had Italian ancestry. Another individual with 0 Scandinavian DNA was found buried with full Viking honors in Scotland. Here's what that means. Viking was not a genetic identity, it was a job description, a way of life. You could be born in Ireland, join a Norse raiding party, and die as a Viking in Sweden. The DNA proves this happened repeatedly. Now let's talk about hair color. Swedish Viking populations did show higher frequencies of genes associated with blonde hair compared to other European regions, yes, but brown and dark hair were common enough that some Viking men actually dyed their hair blonde because they considered it attractive. Medieval texts describe Vikings using strong soap with high lye content to bleach their hair and beards. If everyone was naturally blonde, why bother? The study also found Vikings displayed a wide range of hair colors overall. Genes for blondness were elevated in Scandinavia, but they weren't universal. Dark-haired Vikings stood alongside blonde ones. Red-haired Vikings sailed from Ireland. The image of uniformly blonde Nordic warriors is a 19th century invention, not a historical reality. So while there's some truth to blonde Scandinavians and red-haired Celts as population trends, the reality is far messier. Genetic diversity was the rule, not the exception. If you're watching this hoping for simple answers, I'm about to disappoint you further. Clue 2. Why Y-DNA haplogroups are the only test that actually matters. Here's why most ancestry tests can't really tell you if you're Viking or Celtic. They rely on autosomal DNA, which gets scrambled and diluted every generation. By the time you look back 30 generations, you've inherited DNA from thousands of ancestors in unpredictable combinations. But Y-DNA is different. The Y chromosome passes from father to son almost unchanged for thousands of years. It's a genetic time capsule. And this is where we find the strongest signals for Viking versus Celtic ancestry. For Vikings, the most important marker is haplogroup I1. Geneticist Brian Sykes famously called it the Woden lineage after the Germanic god Odin because of its strong association with Norse and Germanic peoples. Ancient DNA from Viking Age burials shows high frequencies of I1, and today it reaches peak concentrations in Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. In contrast, I1 is rare in traditionally Celtic populations, typically 2 to 5%.
When I1 appears in Britain or Ireland today, it almost always reflects Viking or Anglo-Saxon ancestry, not Celtic. Another key Viking marker is R1A Z284, a Scandinavian-specific branch found in Viking graves and common in modern Swedes and Norwegians. This haplogroup was virtually absent in pre-Viking Celtic populations of the Atlantic Isles. When these North Sea R1A subclades appear in Britain today, they point directly to Viking Age migrations. Now let's talk about Celtic markers. The most common Y-DNA haplogroup among Celtic populations is R1b P312, particularly branches like DF27, L211, and U152. R1b DF27 is strongly associated with Iberian Celts and remains common in Spain today. R1b U152, also known as S28, is linked to continental Celts in ancient Gaul and is still common in France, Switzerland, southwest Germany, and northern Italy. But for Atlantic Celts, the Irish, Scottish, Welsh, and Breton, the key marker is R1b L21. This haplogroup reaches its highest frequencies in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and Brittany. In some Irish regions, it accounts for up to 90% of the male population. Here's the twist. R1b L21 didn't originate with Celts in the cultural sense. It arrived with Bronze Age Bell Beaker migrants who came from the Eurasian steppe around 2500 BCE and largely replaced Britain's earlier Neolithic population. So, when ancestry companies label you Celtic, what they really mean is that you descend from Bronze Age steppe migrants who arrived 4,500 years ago. More refined branches tell even deeper stories. RM222 is especially common in Ulster, linked to the Uí Néill dynasty. RL226 dominates southern Ireland and is associated with Brian Boru, the High King of Ireland, whose personal lineage marker is RDC782. In Scotland, branches like L1335 and L1065 are associated with clans such as Campbell and MacLaren. RS190, known as the Little Scottish Cluster, is another downstream branch of L21. But here's where it gets weird. Robert the Bruce, one of Scotland's most iconic kings, is often assumed to carry R1b L21. He didn't. Research from the University of Strathclyde suggests Bruce likely carried RDF27 B15831, a downstream Iberian Celtic marker. This reflects the Norman origins of the Bruce family and highlights the complex overlap of Celtic, Norman, and continental lineages in medieval Scotland. So, in simple terms, if you or a male relative carry R1b L21, you likely have Atlantic Celtic ancestry. If you carry I1 or R1a Z284, that points towards Scandinavian or Viking roots. But the story is rarely one or the other.